This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your sensei, Brian MacMahon. Now, in Season 1 and 2, I got inside the minds of startup investors. In Season 3, I brought in entrepreneurs to share their startup journey. Here, in Season 4, we combine both so you can hear investors critique the investment value proposition of individual companies. You're going to hear how investors make decisions to invest in startups, what makes a great entrepreneur, and how billion-dollar companies are built. So tune in every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on all the major platforms. You can empower your tribe by sharing the podcast, and remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave us a comment. Good morning, it's Brian. It is Tuesday. We are again on The Art of Startup War. I am here with a phenomenal entrepreneur. I would say half of an entrepreneur dynamic duo. Let's start. I want to start by actually just rewinding back to why Expert Dojo invested in this product, because we do not normally invest in products. Normally, we look at stuff and we say, is it really highly scalable? And is it highly scalable because it's software, or because the team are phenomenal, or because the product has phenomenal traction? And in this one, without a shadow of a doubt, it would not have mattered what they had brought through the door, because this team is such an incredibly strong team. So that was the first thing. I had decided within 15 minutes that we were going to make an investment. The second thing is that when you look at what makes a product really successful, the team is, of course, important. The product is, of course, important. The skills and the product need is, of course, important. But time and time again, the most important factor has been proven to be the timing. And for this particular product, the timing could not be better. And we're going to talk about, there are two actual specifically different types of customer who are going to use this product. But for both of them, the timing is absolutely incredible. Number three, once I got past the team is incredible, the timing is phenomenal for this, probably the best time of past history or future potential. And we then looked at the quality of the product, like what is that product fit and how good is the quality? And the quality is off the friggin' charts. So I'm going to stop teasing you, and I'm going to say Potli is in the house.
Hello, we're here.
Welcome. It's so weird doing this with you on your own without having your partner here.
Yeah, well, we divide and conquer. I think that's part of our skill set. So it's funny, I've told her story as many times as I've told my own, and vice versa. So it's like she's here with us.
But it is great to have you in the podcast studio, in the fridge.
Yes, thank you.
You ventured in the fridge, by the way, during the time of COVID. This is everything. And we're sitting here with our masks on, but we're making it work.
This will be funny, like, whatever, 10 years down the line, I'll be like, remember that time that we were filming with our masks on in the fridge? And it'll all be a funny story.
So I want to talk all about Potli, and I want to start with the product itself. And there are two very important products. One is in the CBD space and one is in the THC space, in the cannabis space, right? Both products are beautiful, which is why I love them. When I spoke about the quality earlier on, I looked at not just what you're creating, also the packaging and also the user experience, like the whole package. And I thought, this is the exact direction that both CBD and cannabis needs to go into. So can we speak a little bit about, I want to talk about the honey, I want to talk about the olive oil, I want to talk about everything that you're putting together, and how you created something so gorgeous and why you created that.
Yeah, of course. So Potli makes delicious, beautiful, really meticulously sourced ingredients like honey, olive oil, chili oil, sriracha. We have an apple cider vinegar. And all these ingredients are infused with hemp extract or cannabis extract. So both CBD and THC. We actually started out on the THC side. And then when hemp CBD became super popular and buzzy, we invariably went down that route solely to be able to ship product to people who were DMing us from all over the country. And we couldn't get access. We couldn't give them access because we were just producing cannabis-derived products. And
because, by the way, CBD has taken the last 4 years. Obviously, we knew about it years beforehand, right? It's got natural health benefits. which are off the charts on many levels, right? As are most natural things, as opposed to these awful drugs that start getting given to people for headaches and goodness knows what else. So
Mm-hmm.
CBD is really, really, really good for you. But something happened in the last few years for people to realize it. What do you think that was?
I think a lot of it has to do with, I mean, there are always going to be rotating health trends that become super, super buzzy. So CBD happened to be the pick. And I think a lot of it was fueled by the fact that cannabis became recreational in California. California is the biggest recreational market. It is also a place where a lot of content comes out of and a lot of tastemakers and influencers live. And in the same way that Potli had this experience of, we weren't even really thinking about hemp-derived CBD at all. We knew that CBD was another major cannabinoid, so we wanted to make a cannabis-derived infusion of it. But when a lot of people wanted to be involved in cannabis, and the only way that they could do that was hemp-derived CBD, I think that's really how demand picked up. I do think that it stemmed from cannabis broadly.
Also, doctors for the very first time started to, and I don't want to use the word endorse, but it feels like endorsing. Like nobody
Mm-hmm.
fought it anymore. If you gone back 10 years ago, doctors would say, nah, I have no interest, or specialists or your GPs. And suddenly over the last 3 or 4 years, they started looking at the terrible opioid crisis that we
Mm-hmm.
have and all of those really harsh and harmful addictive drugs that people were taking. And doctors started saying, actually, you know what? CBD is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have it in the morning. I mean, you've mentioned to me before about how if you have coffee, which has got some honey in
Mm-hmm.
it and
Which
some
I did this
CBD in the
morning.
honey, then it just means that you keep that energy for longer during the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then at lunch, if you have a heavy meal and you have some CBD in that as well, it just doesn't make you as lethargic. And in the evening, it de-stresses you. So there are so many health benefits. And for the very first time, doctors stopped fighting that.
Mm-hmm.
They started saying, you know what, I'm not going to tell you not to take it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can't prove to you what the health outcomes are going to be, but I'm pretty sure that there's nothing negative.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at the top 3 use cases for CBD, this is based on, I think, a 2018 study by the Hemp Journal. The top 3 are anti-inflammation, anti-stress, and anti-anxiety. Inflammation as a health topic became super, super prevalent just before CBD really started coming out on the market. And I think people started to realize our whole bodies are just generally inflamed by all the different allergens and chemicals and toxins that we're consuming. And inflammation comes in a lot of different ways for different people, whether that's eating dairy or too much sugar or pollutants. And so the fact that CBD is a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory agent, for sure, I think that's what people most use it for. But we're so stressed out these days.
Everybody. I was going to say to you, stress. I don't know if
We're
anybody would
so
need that.
stressed. We're so anxious. Like, we're so overstimulated. And, I don't want to say that CBD is a cure all, because it's not. And the way that it manifests in people and works for people is totally different per person. So I get a lot of feedback from customers who are like, well, you told me that it would help me sleep and it didn't help me sleep. And I'm like, I mean, that's normal. Maybe the reasons why you're not sleeping have to do with something else. They're different from the reasons why I can't sleep, and so it's different for everybody. It's not an exact science either, because everybody has a different body type, different types of bioavailability and things like that. But there's definitely something for everyone. I truly believe that.
I agree. And what about on the THC side?
Yeah, so THC is actually better than CBD for things like pain relief. And so if you're somebody who is going through some kind of therapy, or has some more serious ailments, THC with a combination of CBD is actually better for you than just hemp-derived
My
CBD would be.
father, my father had arthritis,
Mm-hmm.
terrible rheumatoid arthritis,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to take cortisone and a number of other awful, 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 terrible things, which do nothing other than just break down your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I wished back in the time that he had taken THC,
Yeah. Yeah.
just as a immediate, personal, like it makes so much sense. And there's not a lot of education out there for folks, or a
Yeah.
lot of the education is miseducation. So
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize that we're so black and white based on what we've been told by the media,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't realize that there are actually really important natural solutions out there which are very bespoke for us,
Yes.
because we get used to what's right for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it provides such a good sense of relief. It's also great for creativity. It's great for people who don't have appetites. There's such a range of treatments that cannabis can provide at any kind of dose. It could be a small microdose, and you take like, 2.5 milligrams or less per day, which is barely enough to make you feel anything psychoactively. But studies have shown that taking microdoses consecutively for many days actually outweigh the health benefits of people who are taking large milligram contents once every few days. So you don't need to be getting high. If you're afraid of getting high, you don't need to. Um, Unless, of course, you have some serious pain relief and you're going to need a lot of cannabis to treat that.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But for the average user, microdosing is a really, really helpful and beneficial part of your day, which is why everything we make is so conducive to microdosing. So instead of smokable products, and instead of super high milligram content like brownies and chocolates and gummies, our ingredients are really made such that you would use kind of a normal serving of what you would of honey or olive oil and have like a small to moderate dose. And it is, what we believe to be the truest expression of cannabis integration into your daily life. Because how much more integrated can you get from just having a normal olive oil and a cannabis infused olive oil,
Right.
and you get to just pick which one. You don't
Uh,
have to add any new actions or
yeah.
any new
And
rituals to
it's
the
not a
day.
normal olive oil.
Right.
It's a beautiful olive
Yeah.
oil made from gorgeous ingredients and done really well. And I didn't even realize, but there's a lot of shitty olive
Mm-hmm.
oil and honey out there. It was Vincent, our producer, who brought this up. And I'm like, how'd you know about this?
Yeah.
He's like, everybody should know about this.
Yeah.
80% of the honey. You say it.
Yeah.
Because I just found it out. And I'm sounding like I'm an expert because I found out like 5 minutes ago. So you're both going to call me out on it. So what the heck is going on? I mean, we always, because actually, let me add one other point in here. When I said at the beginning of the podcast, I love you both as a team, there's a few, I classify everything very quantitatively. So when for me, love means I look to see the ability to do the job. I know you guys are off the charts for supply chain, right? To build this supply chain is actually really hard. You built it, you run it, you manage it, you do it like almost like a swan on the water, right? You're kicking like crazy underneath, but on the top, you look like you're managing it absolutely incredibly, right? Number two, if ever there was a team of people to bring out a beautiful, brilliant, wholesome, all-American product, you are the people who should be bringing this out. I have always felt that the gummies, the cookies, all that kind of stuff, they've done cannabis a disservice on every level. And even like the really awful bottles or things where you buy CBD, they do it a disservice because they keep it in this seedy, terrible place which it should not be in. So what I loved about your products is in your story about your mom and your all your folks that were building. They had like the beehives, and you were making natural honey, which was fresh and ready. That all I got. What I didn't realize is that 80% of the other honey is just garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So share us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so roughly 4 out of 5 honey products and olive oil products, it's around the same range for both, sold within the US are fake. Um,
What do you mean fake? Like fake bees?
Fake can mean a
How do
wide
you be a
variety
fake
of
bee?
things. It's usually what fake means is that there is a little bit of real honey and a little bit of real olive oil, and then it's a ton of vegetable oil.
Oh, damn
Or
them.
it's a
Damn
ton
them.
of like high fructose corn syrup and
What? They do that to
sugars.
the honey?
Yes, they cut it. They cut it with things because real honey and olive oil is incredibly expensive to source. I
Right.
can tell you that it is. Like we live in California, which are top producers of both of those goods. And yet for me to find and source an olive oil and a honey that we're happy with, well, the honey we make ourselves, so we've solved that problem. But with the olive oil, it's incredibly expensive. Um, and so knowing those prices, seeing what is like available on the market, I totally believe that statistic now. And definitely anyone who's listening, check the ingredients label,
So
and
what
see what
kind of
it says.
percentage are we talking about? So if I take shitty honey,
Hmm.
which is made badly and where I'm being manipulated, like, and I'm expecting 100% of it to be honey, like what percentage, more or less, might it be?
That's hard for me to answer. I'm not exactly sure. So I wouldn't feel comfortable throwing something out there. But I can for sure tell you that regardless of the percentage, there's also a high amount of processing that's involved. So a
Oh,
lot of heat, which is fine, but we really pull roots from Eastern medicine and in ancient Ayurvedic medicine. Raw honey is considered yoga vahi, or the most powerful vessel for herbal remedies. And it was so important to us and continues to be so important
I feel
to
like
us
fist pumping you.
to, to keep it
This
raw.
is good.
And Western medicine has not recognized that heating honey does anything, right? But there are chemical compounds that are formed when honey is heated, and when bees actually ingest, because honey is a bee's food supply, right? When bees ingest honey that's been heated, they die. And so I think that throughout time and throughout history, it's always been accepted that you should keep it raw. And that's what we do. So we use a really low heat, slow infusion process.
Beautiful.
And a lot of the times when you see honey in a store that's crystallized and a bit hard in texture, that's a sign that it has been kept raw. If it's like just kind of runny forever, it might still be raw honey. We have some batches that are runnier and kind of keep that fluid state for longer. But I know that a lot of these honeys that stay that way are like that because they've been processed.
Amazing. So you have was the honey the first product?
Yes, for a long
So
time.
that's your baby. That's your first baby. I
That's
know
our
all your
baby.
babies, you love them all, but has to be the one.
Yes, that's our
That's your special
firstborn,
one.
and that's what everyone still knows us for. They still know us as like the honey company, and it is the SKU where we keep our own bees. I always say that the bees are the hardest working part of our team. So yeah, maybe when investors ask us for our employee count, I should be like, it's thousands. We have thousands of people on our team.
You should at least give like an employee share pool or something so that they're okay.
We
Say, bees,
should.
it's good. We got you.
We
When we
should.
IPO, you're going to be fine. We got Queenie and a few others. They're going to be good. So that's great. And then when you first, obviously, we invested in a second because we always invest in the team. We love what you're doing. We believe the products are going to be incredible, and we believe that they're going to grow like crazy. Talk to me a little bit about what that growth plan looks like, and where you think it's going to go. You think it's going to be the CBD? You think it's going to be the THC? What does it look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, honestly speaking, we see Potli's growth as really being supplemented on both channels by the fact that the two channels exist. So with the hemp CBD channel, we've been able to get into like the Erewhons of the world and the Equinoxes and really use it as marketing that has helped legitimize the cannabis side because it creates this ecosystem in which Potli is just a broader wellness brand.
Yeah.
It's a broader wellness food brand.
And you've been very clever in how you've separated the two brands so
Exactly.
that you can actually make sure that whoever you end up going with for either one feels like it's very much tailored towards them.
Exactly. And then on the hemp CBD side, there's like a new hemp CBD brand popping up every day, left and right. They're all probably using the same group of co-packers,
Yeah.
slapping their own label and, assigning a variety of price points. And I know a lot of people have like CBD fatigue because it's been 2 years of a lot of CBD companies forming.
Yeah.
But what our differentiator is as a CBD brand is that we're cannabis operators. And I can guarantee you that like most of the people who are starting these CBD brands do not have any food manufacturing experience,
Yep.
which we do by way of Felicity's family. She's a third generation food manufacturer, manufacturing Asian sauces and spices at a global scale. And that's really helped us get our operations up and running. But two, they also don't have cannabinoid experience. Most CBD brands are just people coming from other industries, don't know what it's like to operate in a regulated cannabis market, don't really know how to handle cannabinoids. And so for us to we produce all of our hemp CBD products exactly as we would our cannabis products. It's the same standard operating procedures. So we really welcome regulation within the hemp industry because it's safe for consumers. It's better to understand where sources and inputs are coming from. And we're ready for it because we own our own manufacturing and distribution licenses on the California side. We own our own our manufacturing facilities and our processes. So we're hoping that that regulation actually kicks in so that we can thrive in this regulated environment.
Beautiful. And you've been really clever because you have the two brands separated
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't really mind which one runs like a
No.
racehorse and which
Yeah.
one then becomes, helped by the one that goes really
Mm-hmm.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be that laws change very quickly. And I mean, and by the way, on the CBD side, it baffles me the situation with food and drink.
Yeah.
And you have to feel that that's going to follow on very
Yes.
soon as well. Like, because we have CBD drinks everywhere and there seems to be no fatigue with that. You
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of feel it's the new diet.
Mm.
So, and I don't mean like you take it to lose weight. I just mean it's the fad
Yeah.
that everybody will say, well, hang on a second. I can have a soft drink which has got nothing, or I can have a soft drink which gives me, just makes me feel better and
Yep.
reduces my stress and gets me to a good place without any of these things being claimed on the tin.
Yeah.
And it's gone really well, and they're flying with it. But within food, they've just been slightly more sluggish,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
again provides you with opportunity once this happens, and it means that once it does break out, then you're going to be one of the operators right there at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think the reason for a lack of CBD inspired food, whereas in the beverage world, there are so many brands, I think
Hmm.
part of it has to do with the fact that most beverage brands use very large scale co-packers. And so for founders to spin up a brand, make a deal with a co-packer to create an infused beverage is not as difficult as creating an infused food. Um, so there is a little bit of a hurdle there,
Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, I mean we're passionate about food. We're big food people. We love to eat. We really think of food as medicine. I mean, if we just ate the right foods, there are so many ailments that we could prevent. Um, I really like to think of food as health hacking. Like you've seen my disgusting smoothies.
Yeah.
Like there are these like green grayish smoothies that I just absolutely
But I
pack with
watch you
things.
smile while you drink them.
I think they're
No, and
delicious.
you look, you've also inspired me in a way. I told you before when I was here before and I would eat stuff in the Cheesecake Factory and
Which I
Duke's and
love, by the way.
which I love too. I don't want to hate on the Cheesecake Factory because it's not the Cheesecake Factory. It's just everywhere in America. There is a awful, awful, awful way of being that all of our stuff is processed.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so processed, it destroys our insides. And you
Mm-hmm.
talk about inflammation, but actually it's just everything. Like
Mm.
we die earlier, we stay more stupid. Like it's everything because we're not feeding neither our brains or our minds or our body properly. We're putting stuff in there which is pretty much perfectly good food where folks said, well, we just need to put some poison in there to make sure that that perfectly good food stays for a little bit longer. And we ingest that. So you're coming from such an incredibly pure place that neither listeners to the show nor investors that we deal with, I never want them to forget that. Food tech right now, or food health, is one of the hottest trends in America because we've been down this other road for just too long.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the potential to be an absolute monster player in that
Mm-hmm.
space because you are not compromising on your standards of what healthy looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going down this road of, well, I'm going to do my olive oil for like $15 because I can just put this cheap, crappy, I can't believe you said corn syrup or anything. Like, I'm going to put just bad stuff into my honey, bad stuff in here. You're not doing that. You're saying, I'm going to make it better
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I mean, we have it at home and it's absolutely delicious. Delicious in tea, delicious on toast, delicious in other places. So I think this is going to be a huge, huge, huge sector. And you're right at the beginning of it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we know that the cannabis industry is growing. It's going to double in the next 2 years. We know that the broader wellness industry is growing and is coming to encompass a larger portion of consumers' wallet spend. But specialty food as a category, which is really rooted in, um, this whole back to basics movements of less additives, more family grown stuff, family recipes that have been passed on, and then, packaging them for today's consumers. Specialty food is growing at 9 times the rate of other packaged foods. And so Potli as a brand of being a really, really well sourced, healthy, delicious, but also cannabis infused food brand sits at the intersection of three major high growth industries.
Yeah.
And I can't say that for the rest of the cannabis industry. Um, and so, I think that Potli will we eventually get to a place where we're doing more than just cannabis? I mean, I think so. I mean, our vision is to really be a functional food brand. We want to make healthy eating choices
Do you want to
really
be known as a
easy.
functional food brand or a functional wellness brand?
Functional food brand. We're definitely always going to be food first. We're going to be kitchen first.
Yeah.
Um, but
But when people think of you, I absolutely 100% know that. But when people think of you, do you want them to think of you as a functional food brand or a functional wellness brand? Do you want them to think of your
oh,
food as great food or as really healthy food?
they're definitely going to think about us from the wellness lifestyle
Yeah.
that we seamlessly
That's how I
integrate in.
see you.
Yeah.
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 Very, very, very strongly.
Yeah, for sure. I think our products are going to be rooted in food, but I think the power of what we've been able to do organically with our brand and growing um, has been rooted in that philosophy of wellness.
Because right now we're like 5 minutes away. We're so stressed. We've eaten so badly. We've exercised in such just a incoherent way that I do believe the hack your health is going to be a big thing, as you've said. I think the detox, our life is
hmm
going to be a big, like all of those things are going to become very important. And whoever has that really healthy food is going to be good. Okay, so let's speak numbers a little bit within generalities, but in numbers as well. Your growth we don't need to separate the two, the THC and the CBD, because actually it's impossible to know which is going to do it. Speak a little bit about revenue that you're on right now and how you see that revenue growing and what you think the big drivers for that will be. And this is really, we're speaking right now to all of the VCs out there
hmm
who are looking at when they're going to invest in your brand.
Yeah. So currently our monthly revenues, we're doing about 25K on average.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we are hoping to grow to about 100K monthly revenue by end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The growth drivers for that, we have three places that we sell our products. We do cannabis wholesale to dispensaries. We do hemp wholesale to grocers, cafes, coffee shops, things like that.
Yeah.
And then we do hemp D2C. The drivers are for sure going to be the first and last channels. Hemp wholesale, I think, is not going to be a reliable channel for quite some time. It actually was our largest sales channel last year. But I think given coronavirus, the state of a lot of these CBD stores and shops and restaurants, I don't see that channel coming back live until well into next year, realistically speaking. But on the cannabis side with dispensaries, we have seen that cannabis is like truly one of the few recession proof businesses because, I mean, even the alcohol industry took a hit, even though people were at home drinking. They weren't going to bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And so, but dispensaries were reporting some of their best months ever.
How interesting.
And so, for us to be in a dispensary was, I don't want to make light of the situation at all,
Yeah.
but it was in some ways a perfect storm for us in March because people were focused on their respiratory health. They wanted cannabis, they wanted the relief and the stress release of cannabis, but didn't really want to smoke as much. And people were at home cooking, which for a lot of people, that's not a reality. And so we were able to kind of bring in this new subset of customers who are, getting more into the routine of cooking and making their own food and getting in touch with that side of themselves. And we're hoping that that is something that sticks in the future. So we see growth in the cannabis channel. We've gotten into some multi-location retailers, which is really the name of the game and the driver of growth in California. And then on our hemp D2C channel, we've been consistently posting our best months ever. And that's a channel that's doubled from last year. So growing in those two channels primarily.
Awesome. And then let's talk a little bit about you and your partner. I mean, to tell us a little bit about Felicity. What does she do? How do you guys work together as a partnership? Where are your individual strengths? And why is that so important to the drivers of the brand?
Yeah, definitely. So Felicity and I actually met as randomly paired roommates freshman year of college at Boston University. We were both business majors. And we just became best friends instantly. Like, we were so comfortable with each other. We had no boundaries.
Hmm.
And we never thought that we'd start a business together, but we stayed best friends. Felicity, after graduating, moved back home to the Bay Area, where we're both from, to San Francisco, and she was working in the food tech space. So she was working at Guild City, Uber Eats. She was on the launch team for MealPal, and really where she was focusing her time was, how do I get people to consume food in ways that they're not used to consuming food? So, both from a business development perspective and a marketing strategy perspective, that's really what she was hyper focused on. And so, she's got really great connections within the restaurant community in San Francisco, which we've leveraged as a business because we're based up there. And she is a talented ops person. As I mentioned earlier, she's a third generation food manufacturer. And so, logistically speaking, she understands what it's like to create processes, build at scale, and to distribute. So, given that her experience is in operation and sales and business development, I always say that she knows what it's like to be on the ground and put in the grit to grow something. I have been working in a capacity that's almost in the opposite direction. So after graduating, I was working in management consulting for a number of years, coming in, solving problems, bouncing, and then
And then you decided to move from the dark side
from the dark side,
to the
exactly.
light.
Well, I first moved from like the dark side to like the semi light side. I worked um I was part of a very small strategy team for Ann Inc., which is the premium segment of Ascena. So it's the Ann Taylor Loft and Lumen Gray clothing brands.
Nice.
And all of the companies in that portfolio had different problems that they were trying to solve for. And so I got to really, really intimately work with the C-suite and the brand presidents to launch initiatives like same-day delivery and a subscription service, building a pop-up strategy, building a brand strategy, thinking about the product assortment and how we needed to evolve that to reach certain types of customers. And so I've always operated at this like 10,000 foot strategy level,
Yeah.
and Felicity has always been boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think the way that we manage each other and balance each other out works really nicely.
Yeah, and this is why I loved you both, because your skills complement each other. Your superhero powers are directly complementary to whatever problem comes. Like, I got this. You don't even need, I watch you both together. Like, you don't even need to say anything. You automatically know.
Yeah, it's like telepathic at this point.
Yeah, which is the sign of a great partnership. And then, but bring me back maybe a little bit to the start. I always like to do this in this segment where because when anybody listening to you is going to say, and even by inference, these are two really strong, powerful, successful female entrepreneurs who are totally in control of their domain, who have had it very easy to build what they've built because of their skills, not because anything's been given to them. But I and you know it's never that easy. It's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So take me back to the beginning when you launched this, when you both launched this at the start, and bring me through some of the more vulnerable and difficult moments you went through.
Hmm. Um.
And don't be telling me you got no vulnerable and
Oh
difficult
no, no.
moments.
I feel vulnerable every single day. Like, I feel vulnerable now even. But when we started, I think that we were both starting from just like such a blissful place of ignorance, that if we knew the complexities of the cannabis industry, like if we truly understood what was required and was going to become required, we wouldn't have built Potli.
Right.
But when we first started, it was really like, I came home for like Thanksgiving break one year, and I tried this honey that Felicity gave me. And we were talking about the broader cannabis industry, and we were thinking about consumers like our Asian immigrant mothers who would never in their lives try cannabis, but we knew they had so much to gain from it. We were like, let's infuse the honey, like let's put weed in it. It would be perfect, right? And as we started to research cannabis and research honey, it just became more and more apparent that this was like the perfect marriage. And so I just think back to like the first batches that we developed. First of all, I was still working consulting at the time, and I would fly home on the weekends to San Francisco instead of to New York, where I was living. And we would test out formulations together, and we would test them on ourselves. We'd get super high. We were like, because we
His
didn't know
best
what
job
dosage was
ever.
right. Yeah, and then we would take notes. Like I have to go find these notes. We
Be
would
like, how's that? It's really good.
yeah, no, we would. That's exactly what it is. Like we would take notes on how we felt, and then we would go back Sunday evening, look at the notes, and we'd be like, "What is this? Like, what is that? What did we mean when we said that?" And then I would go back to like my client site on Monday, and I'd be like residually a little high, like in this conference room, working on like my models or whatever. But like, yeah, the first batch was awful. It took us like 3 days to make 100 jars of honey, which is not efficient whatsoever. We're much better than that now. But um, it was really, really grassroots. Like I remember like Felicity would go to some of these cannabis events, set up a table with our honey, and people would walk by and they would like laugh. They'd be like, "Who are these girls? Like, who do they think that they are? Like, what are they doing here?" And
And was that because of just the types of products you were selling, the fact that they were really good, wholesome wellness products, or was it just because people just thought you didn't belong because
both.
you didn't look like what other folks look like?
Both, I think. And I think that if you look at the people in the industry that gave us a chance, like LAPCG, which is an OG dispensary here in WeHo, or Sava, which is a female-owned delivery dispensary based in San Francisco. It was all other females that presumably look like us that gave us a chance, right? So
That's so nice.
I mean, it's great. We owe everything to like an amazing network of
And
women
by
in
the way,
cannabis.
that's actually quite unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my frustration a lot of the time within early stage entrepreneurship is that females don't help other females as much as you would
Mm.
think they would do. I don't want to touch a contentious subject, but you know, we obviously invest in a lot of females in Expert Dojo. If I can find females over men, I choose females over men just because I truly believe females execute better than men do. For right or for wrong, I don't know. That's just my feeling on it. But then I always have a feeling that if I'm going to send a really great female entrepreneur to meet with a female angel, there's a feeling that it's almost a no-brainer that the female angel is going to give preferential treatment in a good way to
Mm.
the female entrepreneur. And almost every time I'm disappointed.
Mm.
It's very strange. I don't know if you've found that. I'm sure you've had your fair share of problems with female investors and male investors and goodness knows what else, because I know what it's like
Yeah.
as a female entrepreneur trying to raise money, at least to be around female entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your experience been?
I totally get what you're saying. I think that, like, as females, especially ones that are working in professions where they are used to being the only female in the room, it just creates this bias where they feel like there's not space for another female because they don't have an example of spaces where there have been other females. So I see how that happens. Maybe it's not malicious, maybe it's definitely not applicable to everybody, but
Yeah.
I totally see how females are kind of bred up to look at one another as competition.
Very specific to investment. I mean,
Mm.
and maybe other areas too. And I love the
Mm.
fact that you've been mentored and helped, but like very specific to investment. With males, you expect it, right? You just know that as soon as you sit in front of them, like the male is going to be some, again, not all, but some jerkoid who's going to be like, well, I've got to be all powerful and strong now and show like how strong I am, and go, come on, that's not necessary. But with the female one was a surprise to me. I mean, it's tough all the way through, right?
Yeah, I think for us specifically with female investors, our experience has always been such that what's great about speaking with them is they understand our product more quickly than a male investor does.
Yeah.
So they're able to
Because of the
visualize
wealth,
it.
because of the health. Yes,
I think
absolutely.
it's the
Yes.
wellness. I hate to say this, but
Yeah.
it's also because it is a household good,
Yeah.
and females still make 70% of purchasing decisions,
They do. They're
within the
also
US.
smarter than guys as well. Like just on a general level, if you say to a lot of guys, "Hey, you know what's in that food?" Just they don't care, right? And they should care, right? It's not
Hmm.
about the cooking it or the not cooking it or anything. There's plenty of bachelors who just cook stuff, but you say, "Hey, you know what's in that food?" And they're like, "No,
Hmm.
honey." But if you say the same amount of females, they'll say, yeah, of course we know in that, because it's very important, because the makeup of our body is based on what we eat and what we drink. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating space, and I love seeing people who have a really, really positive thing, because everything that's happened, kind of last comment on this subject, but everything that's happened in the last month or so with Black Lives Matter, I've kind of looked at our female entrepreneurs and said that's no different to what they've gone through actually in the early stage startup space, and it's not, doesn't make it okay, it actually makes it worse. That's the situation. Your experience has been good?
As a female entrepreneur?
Yeah.
I think it's been good. I think the cannabis industry is very much one in which, because it's so new and it's new right now, there is a higher representation of female entrepreneurs within the space. And it is very much one where it is collaborative, and people help each other. So my experience on that front has been good. But I think that when it comes to the investment community, as a female, what makes it hard is a lot of the questions and pushback I get is like, we love it, we love the idea, but can this really scale? It seems like you want to keep it small. And I'm like, who told you that? Like who here said that? Like, I didn't say it, and I almost, sometimes I feel like I'm being dismissed and
And
narrative,
patronized in a little way.
right?
It's like, oh, you've done so well.
Right. They're like, that's cute. That seems fun. And I feel like sometimes it gets to a place where they're pushing this narrative of like 2 females in San Francisco just making like artisanal goods, and
Yeah.
we have no plan on scaling, which is not the truth. Like, we want Potli to be the brand that is creating a new category, which is health-oriented edibles. That category does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
Even though the cannabis industry is going to be over $20 billion, we think that edibles is going to make up 5 or more of it, and at least half of that should be health-oriented edibles.
It's
right?
going to be awesome when you exit. I'm going to be right behind you. I don't know if Nasdaq's the place, but I'll be watching you ring that bell if it is the place. And I'll be like, yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun? And then we can all go outside and light a joint or something. And so from that experience, it's been interesting, but if anything, it's just made us more resilient and made us realize, like, you know what, maybe as females, we are ingrained where we're not louder about, and like beating our chests about what we're trying to do. That's something that we fight all the time. Like, we've talked about this before. You're like, you have to present the grandest possible vision you can and just shout that from the rooftops. And it's not in our nature to like brag. I think also being Asian has something to do with that too.
Yeah,
like, our mothers taught us to be super modest and quiet. So it's all a learning experience for us.
Yeah, but the other way to do it is just build phenomenal product, get it to customers who adore your product, scale because everybody loves you, and then build an incredible product that just sells a hell of a lot. And then you become you don't have to brag or push it out there. You just have to be you and keep on doing exactly what you're doing. So I couldn't be more pleased that we've invested in you. I couldn't be more pleased that we're going to be here by your side all the way through this. You have killed it on your subsequent follow-on round so far. We are in a time of COVID where everybody is struggling, and you're sitting there and you've raised, 70%?
70%.
Of your seed
yeah,
round?
We have 2/3 of our round, so we have about $300,000 left.
Yeah, so like it's a walk in the park. And you've done this, no help, no assistance, no anything from anyone else. You brought the money in and you brought it through investors. And how would you categorize the investors who've come in so far?
Mostly angels, family offices, a few operating partners as well who have done cash and services as their investment model. But it's all people who just believe in this vision of bringing cannabis to this broader health market. And a lot of talented individuals across different industries. And it's been great. Not all of them are even cannabis users, but they see our product and they're like, ooh, like this actually excites me for once.
Because you're a wellness brand. Because you're a wellness brand. Because I like having you in my fridge. So finish up with everyone, and let's leave them with a website, email address, and any parting advice about Potli, speaking specifically to venture capitalists about where you're going in the future?
Sure. So you can email me at Chris, CHRIS, at getpotli.com. Potli spelled POTLI. Our website is potlishop.com. And getpotli.com is our cannabis, more content forward site as well. But our Instagram is really the place to find us at Get Potli.
And to bragoid for the VCs, what you going to do, Christine?
So we are taking cannabis from that dark bottom dingy drawer to the front and center of your well-lit kitchen counter. We want to make cannabis products that you are proud of, that you want to share, and that you use frequently and often to really help you live a healthier life and to feel better. The grand vision is category creation, yes, but we want Potli to become a verb eventually. We want, someone at a dinner party to be like, ooh, should we Potli this? And that means to infuse and elevate the experience in the meal and the nutritional value of what you're consuming. So we look forward to that future.
Awesome. I can't think of a better way to finish. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.